Sonic Talk.
Hello everybody, welcome to Sonic Talk episode 509, recording today live on Wednesday, October the 11th, 2017. This is the podcast to do with music technology and all the other things around it, electronic music instruments, drum machines, synthesizers, controllers, software, all that kind of stuff. So it's all to do, all to play for, all to watch. We're about an hour or so of this show. If you want to stay tuned, please do. And subscribe to the channel. You should get informed when we stream live, because obviously we're streaming live now. So obviously you'll be available later on YouTube. I want to say thank you to our show sponsors, iZotope, who are providing a prize this week. In fact, we're getting on to Ozone 8, which is actually quite apt, because I think that's one of the topics this week. So awesome. I want to say hello to all our guests. We'll start with, let's start with Mr. Rich Hilton. We haven't had him for a little while. How are you doing, Rich? Rich, of course, keyboard player with Chic, engineer, player, all those things. How are you? Muted, even.
Straight off the bat.
Straight off the bat. Take a drink.
Everybody have a shot.
Excellent.
I'm good, thank you. Very well. Happy
Excellent.
to be
Glad
here.
to hear it. Happy New Year to everybody too, in case we'd forgotten to mention it. Good to have you aboard.
Happy to be here, but that's...
Oh, I'm sorry. My hearing's getting worse. It's my age. It's my age. Anyway, Rich, lovely to have you, and look forward to hearing what you've got to say later. Huh? Yeah, acting my age, that's right. And we've also got Mr. Steve Hillier from who's coming in from Brighton. Obviously, Steve Hillier, stevehillier.net for all things Steve. Steve, founder of Dubstar, educator, engineer, DJ, producer, songwriter, all of those things. How are you, Steve?
I'm good, thanks. It's been a busy day so far. I'd started my I do just one university course at the moment, and it's been really fun. I've been talking about creativity all day, and it seems like well, that's what the students want to be. So I think it's all going to work out. Excellent.
Oh, that's great. I'm glad to hear it. So a busy multifunction day for you. Also, we have Mr. Gaz Williams from Bristol. Gaz Williams, producer, bass player, music technologist, there in his attic studio. How are you, Gaz?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Really had a lot of fun at the weekend at Synthfest went up with you, Nick. It was really cool, wasn't it? I mean, there was incredible turnout. Loads of people there, and the thing I found really exciting, well, I say exciting, was just how excited everybody was. There was a really positive, happy feeling there, and it was I don't know, it was really exciting to see so many people with big smiles on their faces, just everybody really enjoying it. And it really kind of struck me how much sort of our world of synths and music technology just seems to be growing and growing. I went to Synthfest last year, which had lots of fun, but I mean this year it was like, wow, I think twice as many people.
Yeah, I think it was like 30-40% bigger this year. Yeah, they said.
So it was I don't know, I just thought it was really, really cool to see so many happy people, and thanks to everybody who came up and said lovely things. It was really,
yeah,
really,
that's
really
always
brilliant.
Nice. Great for ego polishing the public events. I want to say I don't remember all of you. I was a bit spaced out, to be honest, because we had to get up very early and I wasn't feeling my best. So if I was in any way non-responsive, I do apologise. But it was nice to see all of you. And at one point, I think, Gaz, we had a queue of selfie takers, didn't we?
Oh, it was brilliant. It was so much fun. But I mean, you know, as I say, I think the whole kind of spirit, the community spirit was really super. And yeah, I just really felt dead chuffed to be there.
Yeah, it was jolly good fun. While I'm here, I want to take a chance to plug our merch. I'm drinking from the Sonicstate, one of the Sonicstate logo mugs. There are multiple designs now available. And I'm also, through coincidence, also branded up on the T-shirt front. So I'm wearing the T-shirt too. So I'm fully branded. I haven't got any other T-shirt, any other Sonicstate garmentry branded. Although I suppose we could consider doing maybe boxers or something like that. Although I think that's perhaps, you know, we'll stay away from that kind of stuff anyway. So yeah, it's been a fun week. I've just finished. For those of you watching the show preview, I've just put up I haven't put up, but I was showing a preview of the Prophet Rev 2 review, which I've just done. And also, I forgot to mention last week, Gaz did the Machina Mark 3 review, which you should definitely check out. That's been going very well, and people seem to appreciate your take on it. So thanks for that, Gaz. And there's more stuff coming too. But I think what we'll probably do first, let's start, because this is one that Rich sent in, and it's kind of as they are a show sponsor, I think we should just do this now. So I'll play it. This is the news of not only Ozone 8, but also Neutron 2, which kind of opens up the whole kind of master assistant and mix assistant. And they've added a bunch of new features, one of which was tonal balance. So the idea is, I think they're using kind of, I'm not sure if it's AI, but machine learning to kind of like suggest starting points for mastering sessions, and also help you to recognize areas where there may be problems, as it'll do frequency analysis. And you've got these kind of bands, depending on the type of music you're using, the bands show you the range of frequency, volume of those, energy in those frequencies per mix that would be compared to thousands and thousands of other tracks in a similar kind of frequency spectrum. Lots and lots of new features. In fact, what I've got, Maker says tonal balance, track referencing. Now I think load up to 11 tracks to reference from. It also communicates with instances of Neutron for fixing things, particularly on a mix, so you can see what's happening. And spectral shaping, which I think is only available in March. I won't play the whole thing, but this, I mean, as we know, iZotope do tend to kind of take a particular tool that they're good at and sort of own the space a little bit. And I know, Gaz, you've been a fan of Ozone for a long time, but I'm going to come to Rich first, because he was the one who brought this up. And I don't know whether iZotope stuff fits in your life, but Ozone seems to be something that lots and lots of professionals have in their toolbox, right?
Yeah. And they make brilliant stuff in general. This takes the advances shown in the first version of Neutron, with respect to machine learning and recommending things to you as starting points for your own excursions into making that particular sound better. They've advanced that into the Ozone line, which they view as their mastering line of work, and therefore applying it across broader spectrum mixes and things of that nature with different kinds of parameters involved, but still performing that same kind of analysis and offering up those same kinds of suggestions. And then the two of them work together with a third product they've created called, I believe it's Tonal Balance Editor, is I believe what they call it. And that's a window you saw briefly in the demo that's neither Neutron nor Ozone, that shows you sort of a 4-band spectral analysis of a target that you can go for with your mix products, and your mix products both appear there and add to that, and you can do edits within selected iZotope plugins within your session from that editor in order to be able to address issues there. Furthermore, you can create those curves, those visual references, from either your own work, from somebody else's song, or from a folder of songs, where it will analyze all of them with respect to the tonal balance and present you with some sort of visual representation of what you think you want to be shooting for.
Yeah, I think that's going to be
pretty
sorry, Rich.
Stuff.
Yeah, it is. And I think the thing that's interesting with that is, like, so for instance, if you're mastering an album, you're going for an overall sound to the album. That'd be very useful with that. I don't know. Steve, do you master? I mean, is this something that kind of appeals to? Because it's not just for mastering, but I mean, you can use it to kind of final stage pre-mastering as well.
Yeah, I do sometimes, but I tend to prefer to let other people do that for me, just simply because if I've been working for something on such a long time, I really do need a fresh pair of ears. But I do like what Rich was just saying about the idea of machine learning for mastering, suite, an idea where you can get the suite to analyze a whole bunch of songs and then make a suggestion based on what the algorithm believes should work with the other the files. And I'll be something that I've been doing for quite a while now when it comes to mixing, just to sort of double check my mixes, is in Logic. I often have like a reference mix, like a tune that's in a similar feel to the tune that I'm doing, and I import it into Logic and play it through the Match EQ, and then play my own mix through Match EQ, and just see if there's some very obvious differences, and if there is, then where my attention mix, as Rich was describing, sounds like that done on steroids or by robots, if you know what I mean. So that sounds fascinating. That's certainly something that I would want to get into, no question.
Yeah, no, it definitely provides a lot of use. I know, Gaz, you do a lot of mastering, and I mean, I know you've been championing Ozone for, I don't know when you started using it, but presumably some iterations back, right?
2003 I started using it, and it's been really my bread and butter. I mean, Ozone's been, I've done like all the mastering I've used Ozone for, so I'm a huge fan. And yeah, I mean, God, Ozone, I think it's been brilliant, and I've been very keen watching it develop through the different updates. And like this one now definitely brings some interesting things in. Like being able to hold those reference tracks is great, especially as you can have the different regions of the reference tracks. So like choruses, you can put out markers into them, so the references can be relevant to different areas of the arrangement, which I think is cool. But I really like the spectral shaper as well, because that is a very cool way of dealing with a particular area. So you would define an area, typically I think around the sort of 2 to 6K kind of area, or maybe 1K to 6K area, where the harsh frequencies live. And the spectral shaper, it's sort of like it's very simple to use, and you've just got a threshold control. But that's really great. It's just subtly taming the really kind of nasty sharp bits, when transients of symbols are just a little bit too grating, so that's quite fun. And also the mastering assistant, which I think's actually much better than I thought it was going to be. So the mastering assistant, you run that and it will set up a bunch of modules with a bunch of starting points. Now I don't think it's like different from using presets. Now I don't like using presets because I feel they're already too established in whatever they're set up for. But this is like a different approach to that, where it gives you essentially like a preset. It doesn't expect you to go,
but it's based on the program material, right?
It's program material, and I did a little experiment with that and loaded in a project I was working in. Just duplicated the project, which currently had an instance of Ozone 7 that had already sort of set up. It was like a finished master, and then I just duplicated it, put in Ozone 8, and ran the mastering assistant, and then just did an A/B comparison between the two, and I was really impressed how it was quite similar. And a lot of the decisions the mastering assistant had made was similar kind of things that I do. And when I'm mastering, I use an enormous amount of dynamic EQ, and the mastering assistant sets up quite a few dynamic EQ nodes, mostly in cuts. And I was saying this to you on Saturday, wasn't I, Nick? That I think when you use dynamic EQ, I think something happens that is like a delicious experience. When you hear frequencies moving, like be it opening a filter or a wah-wah pedal, whatever, there's something irresistible about that. So I think that when you've got dynamic EQ and all these frequencies are subtly moving, I think it just makes the music, regardless of those being actually specifically for fixing certain issues, just the fact that you've got the dynamic, the frequencies moving
makes it speak a bit. Yeah,
it makes it more engaging, and even you can chuck those points in fairly randomly and just get because the mix starts moving, I think it just draws you into it. But yeah, so I mean, yeah, this Ozone 8 though, it definitely looks like a. I haven't really played with it too much. I've only just got it, so I'm just exploring it. But yeah, definitely seems to be pretty good so far.
Excellent. I mean, and it's I think the various upgrades, I think they're doing discounts on it at the moment. There's an Elements version, $99 from 129. Standard version is 199 from 249. Advanced from 299 to 49. And as with all of their stuff, you can do the download bit, and you can get a sort of free download, which works, I think, for 10 days is their standard position. So yeah, I think that's what's really interesting about this is the nature of what they're starting to incorporate machine learning. We've got another topic which is kind of related to that, and but I figure as this is the first part and it is a subject of that, we may as well do the competition now, because we've just been talking about Ozone and we've been talking about iZotope. So last week's competition we asked was for a copy of RX6, and we asked for you to tweet various hashtags to iZotope and Sonicstate, and we got a winner of somebody called Sleight of Handio, which is at Sleight of Handio, and it actually says, hope to meet the Sonic Talk guys at Synthfest on Saturday, and indeed they may have done, but I don't know. But you are actually, but bizarrely, the winner this week, and as I said, it's a random thing, so it's just one of those random coincidences, which is kind of nice when it works like that. But I should mention it, the competition this week, what we're asking for is you can win a copy of Ozone 8, the Final Master. We're looking for the hashtag Final Master and the hashtag Ozone 8. So tweet the hashtag Final Master and the hashtag Ozone 8 to @Sonicstate and @iZotope Inc. and you'll be entered for the competition. And that means that you could, end up winning one, which is pretty cool. Rich, you sounded like you were about to say something, or just clearing your throat.
Things. First of all, I was, but you never label anything final. But besides that, Steve raised an interesting point that I also think about, which is what is mastering these days as compared to what mastering traditionally was. And to me, if it's just the same guy who mixed it dumping more stuff on it, that ain't mastering. That's right. What I just said it is.
Yeah.
Whereas the important part about mastering was that you take your polished, finished, heavily lorded over, like built up project, and you hand it to some other guy and let him do it. That's, I think, the point as I understand it or understood it. This seems to no longer be the case because it's not, shall we say, as cost effective as doing it yourself. And here, just have this shovel and you can dig the hole yourself, and I don't think it's that simple, but I kind of know that that's where the mastering business is going these days, and that's what they're all thinking. And to that end, and to the end that there is no longer a studio business that supports enough apprenticeships for people to really learn this stuff on the job, they kind of have to also build in a pedagogical aspect to it, so people learn from using these things. That's all.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point, and I think you're right. In fact, I think it was Russ over at Pro Tools Expert wrote an article where they did a comparison listening test between Lander, which is the sort of automated mastering test, and mastering engineers' work, and I think it was a very close run thing. But I think the human ears won by a percentage, not a significant percentage, but a percentage, and it's so that is decreasing sort of. I don't know about the kind of the quality or the depth of that research, but it's an interesting point.
I'm down on Lander though. I don't think that works in my opinion, because for me, I think when I'm mastering, I really let my emotional involvement with the music be the guiding factor, really. I mean, I'm really trying to feel what the music is doing, and I'm trying to use the various tools just to realize that the emotional aspect. And I just don't think that any machine learning can understand that emotional element, really. I mean, I absolutely am driven and guided by my emotional responses to the material. There's a certain amount of, that's obviously a bit bassy, or there are a certain amount of technical things that probably an analysis would pick up. But ultimately, a lot of the decisions, and I mean, this is the way I work though, is driven, sort of come from the heart, come from my feeling, really. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. I think that maybe you should be able to submit a kind of paragraph of text describing what you're going for, and it can somehow pass that. But that comes on to another topic, which is kind of interesting in itself, which is I think I found. Let me see if I can find it. I thought I had. I think I've actually lost the clip. Let me just find the post. But the nature of how this sort of thing is starting to come into our more and more into our lives. Let me just find. I found this. It was a great image, which I think really sort of summed up a lot of things. And I wrote a little Facebook post about it, which seems to have piqued a lot of interest. It's done certainly almost as much as a cat on a synthesizer. Let me just find that image. I can just drop it into a web page. I think. Here we go. Let's see. Yes. This kind of gave me the thought that who remembers the Microsoft paperclip? The Microsoft paperclip obviously was an incredibly annoying assistant that you just wouldn't go away. It was like a kind of a person that is trying to have a conversation and doesn't read the signals that you don't want to talk to them. But you could never. The only way you could do it, it ended up being, a real sort of part of school. But it looks like you're applying a lot of reverb on the snare drum. Are you aware it isn't 1982? But that raises these interesting questions about, what can machines and what should machines be doing for us? I mean, obviously, most of us, or at least, I speak for myself, for those of it, and I'm sure you're the same, Steve, came up through kind of Atari MIDI sequencing remixes where everything was very gridded, and that was just of the time. Quantization is kind of probably the most obvious machine assistancy in terms of what a computer can do for us now. But as we get more and more complicated, I mean, what is it that could? Because we're given these visions by people like iZotope and Lander and other, it's not just mastering, all sorts of things. And a range of keyboards, they have a certain amount of machine learning in them and apply musical rules to what you're playing. What is it that, perhaps that they could do that they don't? And I thought that would raise it'd just be an interesting point to talk about. Maybe Steve would like to chip in there.
I've got a lot of thoughts about this kind of thing. And it's interesting looking at the picture of Mr. Thing, the Microsoft thing we were seeing before, because although that was supposed to be an intelligent assistant, the problem was it was just one software company's impression of what a helpful assistant should be. So it's being chipper, it's saying, oh, you look like you are writing a letter. Can I help you? Of course, your reaction is no, please go away forever. But I think that where AI could be instead is to create a collaborator for us, but not a collaborator that is in the vision of someone from Microsoft or even from Apple or iZotope, but a collaborator that we grow ourselves. Now, I know that sounds a bit odd, but what I mean is we've already mentioned that there's machine learning involved in the iZotope mastering suite. And so you play it some audio and it comes up with some ideas for how mastering this new piece of audio would fit with the other audio. But how about a learning process where the AI learns how you would like to work? What are the kind of results that you want? So it's not just giving, EQ curves or dynamic EQ for your mastering. It's not just doing that, but it's also doing other things like making suggestions. So, for example, if you were putting a track together that used to work really well on the dance floor, and your AI was doing some of the mixing for you, it would then point out something like, hey Steve, within this style we would expect to find some sub bass occurring at these points, but you've not included that. Would you like me to A, generate a sub bass line for you, B, call up a synthesizer, generate this, and you can kind of see where I'm going with this. And I think that the ultimate destination, for probably not the ultimate destination, but something that really excites me, is your AI becomes not just your collaborator, but it ultimately becomes your musician. As in, you've grown it, it learns what you want, and then essentially it would understand human language to the extent that you could go to I'm in a autumnal mood today. Could you generate 3 or 4 different compositions for me? And these compositions would be yours, the same way that programming a drum machine and the sounds that come out is your drum machine part. It's just been generated by your collaborator that you've grown yourself. By the way, I read a lot of science fiction. I don't know if it's clear.
And I suppose again, the point of that is, again, if it's your input, then I don't know how you feel about this, Rich. I mean, you're a very accomplished player. You can probably, decide what kind of mood or flavor or color you want and execute it with ease. But sometimes there must be things that you think, actually, it would be great if all I had to do was this at this point, and then I don't have to maybe find the loop, find the tempo. I could just kind of go, hey, I want to play this. And then the door sort of goes, yeah, great. The tempo's this. Do you want me to set a loop point? Here's a bass instrument. Do you want to add something to it? Or something like that would help speed things up based on your previous decisions? Nearly.
Well, everybody...
Or maybe unmute your mic when it sees you're going to speak.
I got it this time. I got it this time. As a musician, and as an audio engineer, there's a part of me, the guy standing on this shoulder over here, that's tempted to just work from what I think I know and come from where I've been and use what I've gathered as information that built my life up to this point of being almost God knows how old I am now. And and it's tempting to use that and just say, to heck with the rest of it. But what interests me about this technology as it relates to Ozone's products, more than with respect to music creation, but with respect to audio and mastering and using plugins on tracks and everything, is I don't know everything and neither do you. And so watching something make suggestions to me and then saying, okay, let's mute all that and put them in one at a time and see how I can use those to my own benefit. That's kind of a cool pursuit to me, because it's like when I go into studios and I work with assistants, they're always surprised that I want to know what they would do in a certain circumstance, because just doing what I do all the time doesn't really teach me very much. But learning from the people I'm working with, who work with a ton of other people, and I know that because I was an assistant once, you can find stuff out that you wouldn't otherwise know. So giving the thing a chance to benefit your process is a cool thing too. And now I'm less likely to go down that road in some sort of machine-assisted music creation process, but I'm not necessarily averse to it either, and I'm not afraid that the machines are running the show. So I kind of like the idea that these things are available to me as tools to either use or disregard at my will. And occasionally I might like an idea for using an exciter that I wouldn't have otherwise put on a mastering channel, and what it's doing to this mix that I wouldn't have even thought to try. So there are things that have come along since I basically learned how to do all of this that I'm not likely to take into consideration in my workflow that might actually help me. And this is how I learned them. So I like that aspect of it. And like I said earlier, they're assuming that a lot more of their marketplace are people who didn't come up through a established studio system with apprenticeships and learning from their elders and watching how everybody else was doing it. It's much more scattered in individual locations now. So you have to work harder to get your information. At the same time, it's way more available because you can sit and watch YouTube videos all day about how to operate this thing you're trying to learn.
Yeah.
So, but there isn't a tutor standing there showing you how he uses it. And so now they're kind of finding a way to create that for you. And I think that's probably a good thing, especially in the absence of that system that otherwise teaches people how to do that, person to person.
I think that's very well put, actually, Rich. Yeah, thank you. That's a good point. I mean, I think, as you say, that the kind of have you tried doing it this way is definitely something that makes sense, because you wouldn't. And to learn how to do it that way, you go, what's this module? What does what? And that immediately puts a period of time in between you doing it. But I guess, Gaz, what are your feelings about this? I mean, obviously you use the mixer system, but in terms of, I think the area at the point of inspiration and composition is where you need shortcuts to a degree, because sometimes, as we know, our world can be a bit IT. And if you're scrabbling around going, oh, where's that? What's this? Oh, and then the moment's gone. To be able to kind of throw ideas in a sort of gently managed situation that enables you just to be creative is probably a good starting point, right?
Yes. The one thing that was kind of slightly troubling me about this aspect is that I wonder if it's kind of potentially throttling the new brand new music by being based on pre-existing choices, or that new music, really new music, doesn't have any precedent. So any algorithms or assistants or whatever is all going to be based on what's gone before. So that's what I was wondering about. There was that if this grows and grows, whether it's just going to mean that everybody just keeps making the same music over and over again, and that I wonder about some really truly groundbreaking music that's happened in the past. It wouldn't have happened if these assistants were trying to sort of drag it back to sort of a more traditional or established way of doing things. That being said, there are quite interesting ways of working, like on Machine, for instance. There's a thing called the variation engine, and if you set up the groups and load it up with a bunch of things, set the key that you're going to be working in for that particular pattern length, maybe an 8-bar loop, for instance, and then you can generate random patterns, and then go in and tweak and adjust what it's generated to sort of make it,
So you end up curating what the machine does to a degree, right?
Yeah, because that's not using any particular AI. It's just more rules of, it's just sort of generating content based on the rules that you've set. So, but I got mixed feelings about this, really, for that reason that I've been trying to do some stuff recently where I'm trying to sort of avoid anything that is an established way of doing things. It's really hard, but trying to use different time signatures and different, just not using downbeats, or trying to sort of remove any traditional musical reference points. I'm very interested to know if there is like a completely new music form out there. So
well, that's the kind of different sorts of scales and unusual modes. That nature of applying musical rules to work within, it's not something new, is it? It's composers. It's been used for years and years and years by various. Because obviously we've got a specific amount of notes. It's interesting that I think for me, you think that there are quite often patch randomizers in software synthesizers that work within certain boundaries, so you get that. For me though, I think just be able to, because part of it is, I've got an idea and I play it in, or I'm playing on a synth, I just hit record on a DAW. I have no idea what the tempo is. I didn't bother to stop and think about it because I just wanted to get that idea in. I'd like maybe a DAW to be able to kind of sort that out and go, yeah, I think this is it, or at least it can be in some sort of form so that it's a repeatable or loopable thing if that's what you want to do. And also, if I've got basses and chords and a melody note, I could say, can you think of any other ways that those two relationships could change while staying integrated? And that might, it might offer a different, it's the same way as when I was remixing. You get a song and you throw different chords at it and different roots at it, and suddenly the melody has a completely different meaning because you've changed those inversions and you've changed that. And those always gave me the most satisfaction. It was always by luck, because I don't really know what I'm doing musically, theoretically wise. I know what I like to hear and what I like the sound of. I don't know if I go, I want to do that to it. I wouldn't know how to do that because I'm not fluent enough in the language of music to be able to do it. So some sort of assistant to help to make suggestions where it's appropriate, given the material I've already put in, as I think you were saying, Steve, is something that appeals to me. And I think there are loads of ways that it could happen, that AI could help, or machine learning could help.
Yeah. I think what I'd just like to add, it was kind of interesting what Gaz was saying about being concerned about all music. If we're using these kind of algorithms, that music would tend to sound the same. I'm just thinking that there's been some big changes in the music technology through our lives, like programmable drum machines and samplers. And when they came along, people were complaining that musicianship out of the music creation process and production and everything was sounding the same. But eventually, when these technologies matured, they gave new styles of music. In fact, I would even say that quantization itself has given us the world of dance music that exists today. And so I'm just wondering, if we think of machine learning and assistance, like you were just describing, Nick, as being a new tool, I think it's kind of inevitable that it's going to open up a world of new styles. And these styles will be controlled ultimately by the musicians. It's not the machines leading the way. It's not going to be like AI composed library and production music that we've heard a lot of recently. They're just going to be another set of tools that can take us in a new direction. So Nick, you said that when you were remixing, you would sometimes put together chords that weren't the original chords for the melody that you were remixing. It would take you in a new direction. Well, just imagine, what would happen if somebody who had no musical talent was doing that, but with the help of a learning collaborator, we could be just unlocking a world of creativity there that didn't exist before. And I'm thinking a little bit of the that album, the Portsmouth Symphony. Did we have heard that? Where they did a whole load of...
They're the orchestra that can't play very well.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's an extraordinary listen. You don't have to listen to it more than once, but it's certainly, fascinating what happens when you put non-musicians in a room and tell them what to do. I'm not sure where I'm going with this now, but it feels great.
Yeah. I got that act, I think I've talked about it before on Sonic, called Pork Ticket. And Pork Ticket's musical sort of purpose is to always choose the wrong thing and to constantly try and make disappointing choices in the music. And but the thing is, some of my friends
hard, I'd imagine.
But some of my friends love Pork Ticket, and I think failing if people love it, but it is quite. God, we cry laughing making it. I mean, it's a really good fun to do. It's like every musical junction take the wrong choice. Oh no, and just a sequence of just wrongness, and it's a little bit like the Portsmouth Symphonia in that respect. I think just. I
think I should just quickly maybe put a little bit of Portsmouth Symphonia into the mix, so you could just. This is Hall of the Mountain King. Oh, it's a bit quiet, isn't it? But yeah, I don't know if you can hear that, but that is actually it's just poor playing, but it's got a thing. I mean, they've been going, I think it's got quite a long, a long history. I mean, I'm aware of that name for ages, so I don't know how long it's been going on for. But yeah, I suppose the thing about machine learning, and this is an interesting concept as well, I think, because ultimately, if you take everything and you learn how it works, then the sort of mean or the median of that is bound to be sort of normality, and maybe maybe too normal. So everything will center around that point of normality, because you're taking effectively a measurement of everything. You're not going to necessarily be moving to the edges unless you figure out algorithms and technology that allow you to then kind of go, actually, I don't want normal. I want, in all the things that you've basically taken here, you've listened to, I want you to just focus on the edges of what of that. That maybe if we're able to do those things, then that might be an interesting concept as well, because it allows you to deviate much more broadly from this kind of amorphous normality. Sorry if that's getting a little bit wordy, but yeah, interesting.
So you mean like the percentage control underneath the quantize? Sort
of, yeah. But musically, because obviously wrongness is wrongness. But some, but just deviation.
To what extent shall we throw away the rules? There should be a slider for that.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. You've got that, Rick.
Do you want a little blast of Pork Ticket?
Oh, please!
I've just lined some up. You're going to regret it. It's horrible. It's thoroughly horrible. Here we are.
Is it playing?
We're not hearing it.
We're not hearing it.
Can I hear that?
And he's
no.
Sorry, hang on.
Hold on, here we go. Live technical debugging. Let's switch to a 4-way so we can watch gas squirm en masse.
Oh God, it is. Why am I doing this? Some people think I'm.
Now you see, this is
it's nice,
but this
to
is a
watch
perfect
somebody else squirm.
This is a perfect example of why an AI assistant might be useful, because it would know what you wanted to do and it would just make it so.
Right,
you can program macros to do that.
Yeah, you could.
Right, okay, there we go. Pork ticket. Is that playing?
It was.
It was for a second there.
I quite like that. It's got an aspect. It's got a sort of touch of the Mussorgsky about it. Okay, now it's getting a bit more out there. Okay, I see what you're doing there. It's interesting. I mean, I suppose the thing is that the concept of that, it's already out there, and those decisions that you've made within that sphere of out there-ness are less obvious.
Well, that particular tune, what I did was I sang the content. I sang like an Indian takeaway thing that had come through the door. I just sang the contents, the menu, just on my own, just in a really bad way, and then we harmonized the chicken dubiaza, and then just
so you start with the bad idea to begin with, or essentially that's your kind of philosophy.
Yeah, and then harmonize the wrongness, and yeah. So that was,
right. Okay. Interesting. Well, anyway, but I think there's lots of it. I did get a comment from a guy called Ivan Sokolenko on YouTube. He said, on Facebook, he said it would be cool to make clever decisions in terms of loops and panning. So, for example, you play something on a synth, and once you stop playing, it automatically makes it into a loop, detects your tempo. And if you start playing another instrument, it switches to another track, records it, does a similar job. If you're jamming it, and it records it all into RAM without you hearing it, or later on you can look through all these records that were partly arranged by the machine itself. And those are the sort of things, take my ideas and try and turn them into something that actually works. That could be another thing. So you throw ideas at a machine and it just goes, well, that's in the wrong key, but let's try and sort of mash those together, and then I'll take that other bit because that sort of fits into that and makes that sort of random arrangement decisions based on your own input. That's another potential. Anyway, I don't want to spend too long on this because I think there are things in the world such as synthesizers.
Ian from Cork here downstairs in the Synth Dungeon at Synthfest.
These are the Reon Driftboxes.
They're not specifically called, though, are they?
Yeah, these little guys are Reon Driftboxes, and they are from Osaka in Japan. They're a little boutique synth company, very small operation of just a handful of people, and they've been in business since 2015 producing these wonderful drift boxes.
I'll leave it there because there aren't an awful lot of sound examples. I think we saw the Reon Driftbox turn up. I think Roland did back in maybe 2015, 2016. We're going to do something with the SE, which is like a synth in a box. And the first, and people were going wild. I think we saw them at NAMM that year, and they got picked up. And obviously that didn't work out. And now Korg UK are looking to bring that entire range in. And I have to say that listening to them at the show, they were massively, monstrously kind of, the oscillators just sounded pretty good. But and they're sort of effects box style things, but it's still kind of a subtractive synthesis kind of model, but with lots of interesting stuff. I know, Steve, I'll come to you first, because have you heard of these? Did you see them the first time round when I think it was the SE that came along and the Roland, they were going to try and push it out?
No, I'm afraid I didn't. The first I've seen of these units was the video that we had on just there. I'm sorry, earlier today. But I must say, they do look really exciting, and it did strike me that the sound was tremendous as well. Do we have a price on these? What they're likely to cost?
Well, I didn't get all of the prices, but I think the SE, which is the 2-voice analog synth, is around about $429. So they are kind of pricey. I mean, they fit into that concept of Volker-ish sort of sizes, but they're considerably more expensive. But they're all through-hole stuff, so they're kind of boutique. But Reon are obviously gearing up to be able to kind of manufacture in higher numbers, which is what Korg are kind of waiting for all of their certification and them to kind of get their jobs together. But yeah, they are about. That's for the synth.
429. I don't know. That sounds like it could be good. I'd have to sort of see one in the flesh, but I do like the concept behind it. And when all the live shows I've been doing recently, whereas previously I would take out keyboards and maybe a rack, everything I'm doing these days is like on a table, it's like on top of I'm sure everyone's seen it, top of a flight case where you put a whole load of synths and controllers on it. And I don't know, there was just something about these little units and the way they sounded that captured my imagination. I can just picture it, doing a really like nice with these machines around.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No,
and sometimes it's sometimes it's the aesthetics of these things, the way they look and how they feel that can be the determining factor, at least for me, as whether I'm going to buy them or not. And I think they look terrific, quite frankly. Yeah.
Gaz, you saw them in the flesh, didn't you? You actually turned me on to that and said, go down and see.
I had to play with them too. And so there's a few things. The prices are just suggested prices at the moment. So those prices aren't fixed. What I would say about them is that the size does actually belie the amount of functionality on them. And there's loads of patch points on the back sides of them as well. So even though they're quite small, they are very feature rich for their size. I was drawn to the one that had the 5 joysticks, and the joysticks felt very similar to the one you'd find on a VCS3 in that they're not sprung at all, and that they're very sensitive. I couldn't quite figure out how to operate it, but they were really fun though. Just, if you've used a VCS3, you'll know that joystick is just it can have incredible effects just moving them around. So having 5 of those joysticks, certainly very, well, I mean, when you consider some of them control pitch, I'd imagine it's going to be very hard to kind of keep those things in tune. But what was quite interesting was just the range. I mean, what was there, about 6 different ones there?
Yeah, the synth themselves sounded really good. The mixer was the interesting one. It's a 4-channel mixer, which could be CV or gate, but it's got memories on it, so you can use it for routing audio and or CV, which is kind of, as I said to Ian, isn't that the Volker mixer that you should have made by now?
Yeah. Oops. I know, like snapshots. You could store all the parameters and snapshots, and then sort of morph between different snapshots on there. So that's pretty cool. I mean, I think that they do seem expensive on one part, but again, I think they seem expensive because they're small. But if they were a little bit bigger, because they're so feature rich and then such a lot of connectivity on them, I don't think they necessarily are that expensive, really. And there is something highly appealing about them, like what Steve was saying. Just seeing them all there at Synthfest just was you just wanted them all.
Set exactly.
It's a bit like the boutiques have a little bit of that, don't they? Just having all the boutiques.
Yeah, that's right. And the Roland room, they missed a trick by not having all the boutiques together on a wall somewhere, just so you could look at them all and go, ooh. They had them all there, on various, but not all together, so you couldn't. Not like the Boss pedals where they just have an entire wall of Boss pedals. You've got to do the same thing there, I think. Definitely.
I had a little play of the DO5 as well in Synthfest, and I did enjoy it, actually. I thought, I'm quite tempted with one of them.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, an aside there.
Rich, I know it's a kind of unusual thing. This kind of boutique data. I don't know if you've come across these before, because they did get a little bit of publicity maybe a couple of years ago.
This was my first exposure to them that I can recall, and they seemed very impressive. I don't think I realized that they were quite as expensive as they are, but they sounded cool. They did a lot of cool things. That one last module in particular where it was clocking things and routing things, and it just seemed like really,
the sequencer,
really clever.
that was nice.
It seemed like a really, really clever module to me. But and there were things I didn't hear from the analog synths that I would have wanted to hear that would give me a better sense.
Yeah,
of
it
what-
wasn't really a fully featured demo. That's true.
But also the 4 joystick points that Gaz made, totally down with that. And it seems to me that these instruments are very well suited to sort of live improvisational work, which is sort of what I don't see anybody doing with them. But because you can get so much going on, for example, 4 joysticks like that, it's pretty remarkable. I have to just tell you, a bird about, I don't know, 3 feet, about a meter tall, just landed on my neighbor's roof. This thing is like a pterodactyl, for crying out loud. It's huge.
Was it a heron?
I don't know what it is. But it's like from the floor to here. It's big.
Storm?
It's coming for you.
No, and he's
Is it yellow,
out
Rich?
there, like kind of looking, because I'm on the second floor and there's a valley next to me. It's not yellow.
Are there lasers coming out of its eyes?
Tempting to take a picture. No, there's nothing.
Yeah, go on. Let's see. Take a picture and let's have a look. You can show us a little bit later.
I've never seen anything this large in the neighborhood.
Wow.
Live
Is
twitching
it?
here on Sonicstate. You thought it was all to do with audio technology. We're actually now covering wildlife
Sorry if I seem distracted,
no, that's all right.
fellas.
That's all right. I remember once we were at we were doing a tape where I rented the old Peter Gabriel's old studio out in not in Box in the I forget what it was actually called, Ashcombe House, where So was made, and it was an old cattle shed, and he, it was after So had come out, and he built this massive studio, and the building was left kind of, just as a kind of a dump for the guy who bought the house afterwards. And we went in and we rented the building off him and turned it into a studio for working on an album. And I remember we were doing a vocal in the control room, and there was a massive, great sort of picture window in front of the control room with all sort of like that tilted glass. And a heron just landed in the tree right outside, and that was standing up. It was, huge, and the whole take was completely lost. I don't know. There must be some stories there about how wildlife might have distracted you from a fantastic take. I know, Steve. There's that classic one about. There's the classic one about again at Peter Gabriel's studio with the mill, where there's the glass floor and the stream runs below, and there was somebody playing drums, and a couple of ducks ran through, followed by a golden retriever, and that broke the take as well. Have you ever had anything of a similar note?
No, I'm just thinking. I do know that that room you're talking about. This is a real net. It's quite extraordinary to have a little stream running down below. I have 2 cats that live here with me, and they always play some sort of role in whatever session I've got going on here. But they're usually quite constructive and cooperative. They have some amazing ideas. So no, nothing's gone wrong so far. But there's always time.
Yeah, you never know. Okay, we should probably do another. Oh yeah, this was a piece that Peter Kern put on Create Digital Music, which is now CDM Link, and this is the news that Ableton Live is going 64-bit only. And obviously, a lot of doors are, I think Logic's now only 64-bit. I don't know whether Cubase is. And, the advantages and disadvantages, obviously, for many people, that means that if you're still using 30-bit, 32-bit only plugins, unless you've got a bridge or some other way of doing it, they're going to be history. But the advantages to having all of that extra RAM available to all the plugins and more available to the application, less crashes because of memory loss, and of course with Live, I think they're doing it later in the year. You can install both, of course, if you want to. I'm not sure what I'm running here. I do remember at one point downloading a 64-bit version, but I don't know if I'm running 64-bit at the moment. I'm guessing, Rich, you probably work pretty much 64-bit only now. I mean, because you're probably running sample libraries and stuff that requires larger amounts of RAM and what have you.
I don't know if I have a really good reason, except that the operating systems are all pretty much 64-bit now. So why the heck not? I wish I had a better reason for you than that. Yeah, I guess the resources, and I am running current versions of software on everything. So, and I kind of like doing that because I like the feature additions as they come along, and I don't like to plant flags and say, here, I'm stopping right here, and for the rest of my days, I'm going to work there. I'm not doing that. So the operating systems are 64-bit. The new versions of software are 64-bit, and the plugin guys are pretty much all writing their 64-bit versions. So why not?
Yeah, I suppose it's just sort of legacy stuff. Hi, Steve.
Yeah.
I guess you probably you're a live guy. Is that your kind of Live or Logic, or is that?
Yeah, I use Live for writing and also playing live, and then Logic for finishing stuff up. And I've been 64-bit now for like a really long time. So long that I sort of almost like forgotten the benefit of going to 64 really was for me. But what I think is kind of interesting about this situation is it throws up the question: what do we do with software that we're using that's now obsolete and we can't use because there's no 64-bit version around? Now, this isn't, I suppose, so much of a problem these days because most 32-bit programs that are still extant will be upgraded to 64. But if you're using something quite old, I don't know, it puts you in a bit of a difficult situation. And I know on many forums, when, like, for example, when Logic went 64-bit only, there were a lot of people complaining that it would obsolete a whole load of plugins they got from back in the day. But I do wonder whether maybe this is part of the deal, if you know what I mean. It's part of the deal of being a digital musician, that all the software that we use is sort of provisional, if you know what I mean. It's not got the same kind of lifespan as a physical product, which is obviously a big negative against it. But at the same time, there's so many advantages of going digital that maybe we have to accept that this is the trade.
To do the deal, right? Yeah,
permanent fixtures within our studio.
Yeah, I suppose you can always have a B machine which would run 32 bits and just keep that alive. I suppose, but if you really must have it.
You can run.
What I've done.
Oh, sorry.
So,
do you want to just come back in, Steve?
What I was going to say is that what I've done with my old setups is I have a series of disk images of operating systems before they got upgraded or before Logic went from 64 and 32 to 64-bit only, so that it ever turns out that it's absolutely must need from the past, I can recreate that machine on let's say a Mac from eBay for £100, which I've done on several occasions, and it does tend to work out. So there are ways of turning back time, but it's
you just take a system snapshot on that, right? Interesting.
Yeah,
that's an interesting.
It's not terribly convenient, but it can be done.
Yeah. Yes.
So you can run both. You could keep a 32-bit version of Ableton running alongside the 64-bit.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, so, it just won't be supported after a certain amount of time.
So I mean, I guess it is one of these things. One thing on the positive side, though, is that I think it will take like an extremely long time before 64-bit would become obsolete. So I think it's probably worthwhile for people to make the change. Because it's not going to be, we're not going to be faced with it going to 128-bit or anytime soon. I mean, probably, I don't know if it will, but there's such a lot of headroom within 64-bit that, it does seem that it probably is worthwhile doing it now rather than hanging on. But I mean, like Cubase is 64-bit. Only Cubase 9 now. iOS, as we've said, iOS 11 has gone 64-bit. So the interesting point on the Create Digital Music article that we're referencing is that that they're talking about how maintaining a 32-bit and 64-bit takes up a lot of staff resources, developer time, and that so actually there's going to be that more benefit focus. For more focus, quicker updates, and maybe so I think considering it has been almost like I don't know how long the transition point has been. It's certainly 5-6 years, hasn't it, of transitioning from 32-bit to 64-bit. So I don't think this is in any way a bad thing. I think it's a good thing.
No.
And, and it does give you, just do it. I think so. Yeah.
I don't know if it's gone past, but I think Wagyu in the chat room said we need to get to 16 exabytes memory requirements before 128-bit is required. But never say never. That's a very good point. But yeah, I mean, as we've all said in the past, there's always a possibility. You never know. Let's have a look. I'm just trying to see what else that we've got here that would probably squeeze in. Did anyone see this one? This what was it? What number is it? It's number 3, I think. This is the band, The Academic, and a track called Bear Claws. And what they've done is they've used the delay in the kind of like we're using with Facebook, the delay in it happening and coming back to create a kind of video and audio looper to build their track. And it's really very cleverly done. So as you see in the background, what's happening is as the next scene comes in and they're filming it, you get that kind of kaleidoscope effect that you get with when you point your camera at the monitor that you're monitoring the camera on, and it just builds up and builds up and builds up, and it's actually quite a cool track. And I just thought I'd never heard of anything like that, and it's one of those neat. It's worthy of OK Go this, and it's had something like what was it over 1 million views, 1,300,000. If I bring it all forward a bit, then we'll get a bit more. So that I wonder how they did it. They must have had some kind of a click track, obviously, because there's some stuff that's not happening. Let's see, there's some drums in it as well. I just thought, what a brilliant idea to do. I don't know whether we could do anything similar, but it must have taken quite a lot of working out. I know, Steve, is that sort of thing that does that kind of nifty use of that technology appear? I've never seen that done before. Have you?
No, not like that. It excites me greatly because, we were talking before about how if everything gets taken over by AI, we'll end up with just mundane, average music. But these guys and what the future requires, which is to take existing technology and push it right to the edge and do something that we haven't seen before in a kind of exciting way. Just looking at the little bit of the clip that there, what they need. It's really impressive, but it's not perfect, and maybe that's kind of the point. It's it's cutting edge. It's showing you the excitement of discovering something new that you could do with technology, even though it's it's not completely perfect. So I find this sort of thing really interesting. And I remember back in the day, and that day would be 1992, when I made a video with a band up in Middlesbrough, and we did the really simple thing of just turning the camera to face the monitor, and you get that kind of instant space out effect that used to be used on Top of the Pops, where the image just repeats really, really quickly.
Yeah, video feedback.
So it reminded me. Yeah, exactly. But this is way better than what I did. So well done, guys.
Hi, Rich. Nice to see a bit of innovation in some department. I mean, obviously, it's work for them. I mean, marketing, and having a sort of USP and something unique is a great thing. And I hope it results in some success and some revenue for them. Because it must have taken a bit of working out, I'd imagine.
Well, yeah, they have to calculate what the delay is. You have to figure a tempo that's going to work into some even numbered series of beats within that delay framework, and then you start from the beginning with that tempo in mind, and as Steve says, viva the little differences, and you get little something between feel issues and discrepancies. But and the interesting thing is the more you pile on, the less obvious they become. But this gets to the whole looper pedal technology thing. And people have gotten really good at that. And you go out nowadays and you see two guys with guitars in their hands, or a guitarist and a singer with a darbuka or something, or djembe. And the guitarist is looping the song and then jamming over it. And there's a lot of looper technology out there. And this to me is an extension of looper technology. It's just using different means to get there, but it's musically about the same. And to me, the king of looper technology these days is Jacob Collier, who actually does concerts where he sits there and creates entire pieces of music in front of 12,000 people on a stage, and they sit there in rapt attention. And he's incredibly good at it. And he's incredibly good at getting the take immediately. He doesn't falter really very much.
That's true. Of course, Ed Sheeran, same deal. And also they did that as a live stream as well, so the whole thing was actually going out into the world live. I know, pretty neat, guys. It's sort of worthy of a worthy of one of those kind of, it's like a sort of shoestring idea executed to great effect, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised that the latency was so solid, you know, that you could rely on the latency not changing. So I wonder if it is entirely. Did they do it live then, or did they?
I believe so. Yeah, I mean that's how it starts out. I'm going to try something now. I wonder what the latency is on this one. So if I do that, I'll be able to tell you when it comes in on Facebook. So that's probably about 2 seconds. Carry on talking, Gaz. Yeah.
Okay.
6. Probably about 10 seconds that was. So that's not too bad. But
okay. So yeah. So you work out what the BPM would work in 10 seconds. Yeah, cool. I mean, brilliant, isn't it? I mean, it's just one of those things where these guys have just sort of seen this thing and grabbed it. Yeah, I mean, great. And I mean, the other thing is like I'd never heard of the band before, and now I've heard of them, so it's certainly worked.
Does the job, doesn't it?
Yeah. But just on the point of looping and how that is an art form and how it's almost that whole world has evolved and evolved and evolved, and people have taken it to the next level. And Beardy Man, who we did a feature on, I think was it last year, was going out and doing making an album live every night, going out asking the audience for
oh god, yeah, that's insane, isn't it?
Yeah, and then he expanded that though from doing it just with himself to having a whole band and just sort of building an album with a band. And then they did it live on 6 Music, on BBC Radio 6 Music, you know, like a whole album worth of material made up on the spot, but that's all really sounded like complete music. Very, very impressive indeed. Yeah,
really good stuff. Anyway, and there was a synth in that video. I think it might have been a Mini Nova or possibly a Microkorg, but I just thought, just to bring it back to the music technology aspect of it as well, just for a second. But yeah, and I was going to also, before we go, let me just bring in my own piece of music technology, which you could buy directly from us, Wavejunction, of course, Max for Live synthesizer. In fact, you might have seen a thing that we did with Feel and Kane. There was a Ableton Max for Live kind of stand. This has got 2 oscillators, multi-mode oscillators with 3 multi-mode filters and 5 envelopes, 5 LFOs, wavetable synthesis, 12 slot modulation matrix. Really is a very powerful synthesizer. Up to 4 voices. It all runs in Max for Live, and you can buy it directly from us using the discount code 10% WJTalk17. bit.ly/Wavejunction we need to go, so bit.ly/Wavejunction WJTalk17 will get you that discount, and you can enjoy hours and hours of fun and support the site too. What more could you ask? Yes, that was rather remiss of me not to get that in any sooner, because I think I'm probably we're just at the point to bring the show to an end, because I'm heading off, because today is a special day for me, sort of, or at least I'm going to go and celebrate it. So I'm going to go out and have a pizza, so I need to finish at a reasonable time. So thank you, Gaz, for joining us, coming in there. That was great to have you, as ever. Oh, you've got the Kordbot.
I've got a Kordbot, yeah. So I'm going to be exploring this over the next the next week or so. This has just arrived. We covered this on the show, didn't we, when it was on Kickstarter? Oops, I'm doing it the wrong way.
It's now an actual thing.
It's an actual thing, and physically very, very nice. It feels like quite early days in terms of the software on it. They got caught by the strange phenomena of Kickstarter, of having stretch goals, having some quite ambitious stretch goals, and unfortunately for them, it reached all the stretch goals. I say unfortunately because it meant that they had to, because I mean, there was going to originally be just 6 knobs and 6 pads and an LCD screen.
All right, so they had to expand it massively.
So pretty much as soon as they reached the end of the Kickstarter, they had to pretty much go back to the drawing board and sort of redesign it, which has meant that it's been quite a lot longer coming. However, I can report at this point that physically, and it feels really good. I like all of the physical nature of it. There is going to be a sequencer coming into it that's not implemented now. but that will be coming. But yeah, I mean, I'm going to make a video.
Look forward to hearing some of that. Actually,
can I just
before we
ask,
go,
what is it?
Oh yeah, yes, go, Steve.
Sorry, I wanted to ask Gaz, what does it actually do? I haven't seen this before. It looks fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite a unique thing. It's called a Kordbot, and you can kind of think of it as a chord assistant in a way. So it's got MIDI DIN, and it's got USB, and it's also got Bluetooth MIDI in it. So you can think of it, it's no sounds in it, so it's just a controller. But you can, along here, I don't know if you can make that out, it's got a lot of defined chord names. And like you can hold a key and press one of these. You know, we've seen this kind of thing before on some like arranger keyboards, I think. But there's an arpeggiator in it too, and a lot of these controls let you manipulate the arpeggiator in real time. And but there's also a chord assistant mode if you put it into like a diatonic mode. So when you hold down, if you hold down a chord, it'll light up other chords which will work with it. You know, it'll suggest.
So suggest the next one.
Yeah, and every single key and everything on here has got little red backlit. So if I was to hold down a chord, the notes would light up behind the keyboard to show which notes are in it. So there's a lot of nifty little hardware pieces on there, and you can kind of think of it as a songwriting tool. I think it's got quite a unique aspect to it.
Almost related to what we've been talking about, I suppose. Yeah.
Yes, so it's worth showing, and it's nicely made as well. It feels good. And you know, on the back as well, we've got like a sustain pedal input and a foot switch input. So you know, it's there's a strum strip here as well, so you can use it a little bit like a omnichord kind of things, you know. So you can like press a chord and then strum through the notes on here.
Can you press more than one chord at a time?
No, I don't think so. But I think what is quite cool about it is that that the processor that's running the whole thing is, I think they've got quite a juicy processor in there, so there's a lot of potential with it. I think so I think early adopters like the Kickstarter people and anyone who was to buy them now, I think the good thing is it's there's a lot of interesting stuff coming, including this chord sequencer mode, which I think that when the sequencer is fully implemented, I think that will be really cool. They don't intend it to be like a hub, like a sequencer hub, where it, you know, it's a multi-track channel sequencer. But if it was integrating with various pieces of kit and you used it just to sequence chords on there. But one nifty thing is that every single key can be assigned to a different MIDI channel.
All right, so it works as a control. Well, we'll look forward to your full review of that at some point. That'd be really interesting. I did want to ask one more question before I say goodbye to everybody. Has anyone seen Blade Runner 2049 yet?
Yeah, I went yesterday.
I saw it. I saw it on Friday. I haven't yet.
Is it any good?
It's yeah, I went down. There's a new cinema just down the road from here with a fantastic sound system, screen, and I checked how long the movie was before I went there because I wanted to know, God, what am I in for? All I can say is by the time 2.5 hours later when the film ended, I was surprised how short it was. It didn't drag for a moment. It was excellent.
And is the music all it could be, because it's got a lot to live up to, right?
Yeah, there are moments where it's got that Vangelis thing, but there's various aspects of the film where it's very clear that they're reflecting the original, which is completely fine. Obviously, it's a sequel, but you don't have that many awkward moments where you've got Hammer trying to be Vangelis. He's taking it in a different direction, and it deafens. I loved it, quite frankly.
So, Rich, you famously haven't been to see Blade Runner at all, ever, any of them. Are you going to go and see this one?
I could. Am I likely to? No, because I'm never likely to go to a movie theater in America these days. But But I wouldn't run from the room with my hands over my ears. It's not like some form of religious belief. It's just I not
just haven't made it yet.
I don't expect to go out of my way. However, if I get a chance to watch it downstairs and listen to it on my system, yeah, maybe.
Well, it'll be a little while, yeah.
Especially because who did the soundtrack? Hans
Zimmer, and I've forgotten the name of the other guy, but yeah.
Yeah, well, that I'd listen to, sure.
And Gaz, did you see it?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I went yesterday to see it. I thought it was great. I mean, I thought it was everything I was hoping it to be, really, and a whole lot more. The production design, I really enjoyed the music in it. I've seen quite a few people grumbling about it online.
Yeah, there's been you always get a bit of a backlash of these things.
Yeah, and some people claiming that it's misogynistic, and I just don't get that at all. I don't think that's particularly fair. I think it's a really well made film, and I totally agree with Steve in that the long running time it doesn't drag. It's really you really are quite engrossed in it, and I loved it. Yeah, I loved it.
Did you go 3D or 2D?
I went 3D.
Yeah, I'm thinking about doing that. I'm thinking about doing that.
I mean, it's one of them things, and I understand that you do lose the brightness. You do get like a much duller, darker experience with the 3D. But the reason we decided to see it in 3D was one of those things of
it's been made for it, presumably.
2D. Yeah, you're watching it in 2D, you'd be wondering, I wonder what it was like in 3D. But when I was watching it in 3D, I wasn't wondering what it was like in 2D.
Good point. Okay, well, thank you for all of that input. Gaz, thank you very much for joining us. Been a pleasure having you as ever. And I hope to see you again very soon. Also, Mr. Steve Hillier, thank you very much for joining us too. It's been a pleasure having you, although you might have... Oh, no, I thought you'd frozen then for a minute. You're just obviously some kind of ninja master, can just stay still for hours. Are you balanced on one leg at the same time? Yeah. No.
I've just got a cat here on my lap.
Okay. And also, Rich, thank you very much for joining us too. Lovely to have you aboard again. And I don't know if are you on your travels again, or are you? Oh, you've got more touring stuff, right, coming up.
First, let's make sure my microphone's on. Yes,
it is. 1, 2.
I am I'm traveling to a super secret location this weekend for a private gig and back. And then, as some of you may know, the following week, or coming up to the last weekend of the month, we're coming to the UK and England and Ireland. We're playing in Dublin, Liverpool, and London, and then we're doing some broadcast stuff while we're in London. So I'll be around a bit.
Excellent. Well, hey. I'm going to be I'm going to be away from the 24th. I've got a piece lined up. We did an interview with Failed Muso, Robbie Puricelli, on his Fairlight that he's been restoring. So there's a piece that's going to go in at that Wednesday, but I won't be around for that Wednesday. But I don't know if you're going to be in the country at the same time as me. I hope so, and maybe we can hook up. It would be nice.
What date are you in London?
Well, it's Dublin 25, Liverpool 26, London 27 at the O2, and then in London through the weekend, and Monday we're doing some kind of recording for the BBC. So I'm there until Tuesday.
Oh, man, and I think I go up on the 2nd, which I think is a Thursday, to speak at We Are Robots, so I don't suppose you'll still be around. That's a shame. That could have been perfect, but gosh, darn it.
Can I just give a quick plug for the Asteroid Deluxe album launch on the 3rd of November in the Cube in Bristol for the Lawn. The album's called The Lawn, so we're calling it The Launch.
Oh, very good.
So that's tickets are on sale now. If anyone wants to come, it is brilliant. We got a proper, really good. There's a piece of software called Resolume, and it's amazing.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Do you know it? Yeah.
Yes.
Video. So we got a guy who's using an Akai APC 40, a chap called David Hopkinson. He's absolute expert at it, and he's assembled lots of visuals and
to go along with it.
So it's like having another member of the band, but doing all the visuals. So so if anyone fancies that, 3rd of November, I might plug it again if I'm on the show before then. So
okay,
if I do.
Great. Righty ho. Well, I think that's it for this week. Thank you very much, everybody, for watching. Don't forget to enter the competition. I think I mentioned that earlier. You tweet the hashtag FinalMaster and the hashtag Ozone8 to @Sonicstate and @iZotope Inc., and that'll get you entered to win a copy of iZotope's Ozone 8. That's it, as I said, for this week. We'll see you next time. We can all wave as we go. See you later. Bye-bye.